Let us pray. Almighty God, the creator and ruler of heaven and earth, we beseech thee to inspire and guide all our actions, so that we may always walk in the path of justice, love, and charity to one another. Help us with thy grace to do only those things that promote the unity, peace, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria in general, and Lagos State in particular. Amen. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. Welcome to today's sitting. Let us go through the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 30th June 2020. Page 168, 169, 170, 171, 172, 173, 174, 175. I have examined the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 30th June 2020, and approval is here granted. Any message from the governor?
Right, Honorable Speaker, distinguished honorable members, there is no message from Mr. Governor.
Any other announcements?
Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable members, we received a letter from the Office of the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice addressed to the Clerk of the House titled proposal for a law to provide for the prohibition of unlawful societies and cultism in Lagos State. With your kind permission, sir, I wish to read a summary of the letter as follows. The Lagos State Executive Council, at its meeting of 22nd June 2020, considered the proposal for a law to provide for the prohibition of unlawful societies and cultism in Lagos State, and resolved to present the attached bill to the House for further legislative process. The bill seeks to repeal the Extant Cultism Law 2007, now Cap C-18 Law of Lagos State of Nigeria 2015, and amongst other provisions, provide for more stringent punitive measures, as well as make the law all-encompassing and applicable to members of the public as against its restriction to students of tertiary institutions. It has now become imperative to repeal the Cultism Law 2007 and enlarge its application beyond educational institutions, as well as provide for more stringent punitive measures to curb this menace or minimize its activities in the state. In line with the resolution of the State Executive Council, 60 copies of the Unlawful Society and Cultism Bill 2020 are being forwarded for the consideration and approval of the House. Please accept the assurances of our warmest regards. Signed, Mr. Moyosore Onigbanjo, LCN, Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice. That's all, sir.
Petition.
None, Mr. Speaker. Sir.
Matter of other public reporters. Dot. Personal explanation. Yes, Honorable Osho.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, members. Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity. At our last sitting on the 30th of June, on Tuesday, there was an issue here where you directed me to go back to my seat. Mr. Speaker, members, let me put it on record that this is my fourth time in the House, and I know that members are expected to sit at their allotted seats unless there is an approval. Mr. Speaker, after that incident, about an hour later, I saw so many publications, and the titles were misleading because I read things like Oshun walked out on Obasa, Oshun was not comfortable. And reading through the reports, I realized that it's either the writers did not know what happened or they were just being mischievous. Mr. Speaker, I want to put the record straight. Firstly, I want to state it categorically that I did not walk out on either Mr. Speaker or the House. What actually happened was, if Mr. Speaker could recall, and like I tried to explain on Tuesday, about 2 weeks ago, sir, I came to see in your office talking about the sitting here. If you look at the seat in this chamber, it's the same thing. So I can't say one seat is not comfortable or one is comfortable. But I spoke to you about the issues going on in the country now, about the pandemics. And I sought your approval for me to sit somewhere else for the period of the pandemics. And you graciously approved that I can sit somewhere else, which was what I did on Tuesday. So it was shocking to me when you actually asked me what I was doing there. I tried to explain. But like you told me later that, well, you had forgotten we had that discussion and you actually gave the approval. I just want it on record that firstly, I didn't walk out. If it looks like that to my other colleagues or to Mr. Speaker that I actually walked out, well, I'm stating categorically here, I'm sorry for that. That wasn't the intention. I walked out because when Mr. Speaker gave me the approval when I came to see you in your office, I have not received the contrary instruction to that, saying that approval has been retrieved or that I'm not allowed to sit there again. So when Mr. Speaker challenged me, it was confusing to me, and that was why I went out, because it became confusing to me, and for that split second, I don't know what to do. That was why I went out. But it wasn't walking out of the House or walking out of the Speaker. If it looked like that to my colleagues, like I said again, I'm sorry, that wasn't the intention. I only thought I had the approval of Mr. Speaker and that was why I did what I did. So I just want to state that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Reports? No. Business of the day, Majority Leader.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues. The motion we have listed for today is House of Assembly motion number 22, which prime mover is Honorable Elliot D.O. of Surulere 1, supported by other honorable members, including myself, Honorable Agumadi S.O.B. Ikorodu 1, Honorable Adams N.B. Etiosa 1, Honorable Mrs. Miranda M.L. Apapa 1, Honorable Mrs. Shangodara M.R. Surulere 2, Honorable Layode I.O. Badagry 1, Honorable Ogundi Mu O. Agege 2, Honorable Engineer David S.S. Badagry 2, Honorable Mohammed F.G. Ikeja 1, Honorable Kasum A.R. Ikeja 2, Honorable Sonny G.B.O. Koshofe 1, Honorable Akisanya A.N. Mushin 1, Honorable Owolabi I.A.O. Lagos Mainland 1. With the kind permission of Mr. Speaker, I wish to call on Honorable Elliot D.O. to move his motion titled Need to Enhance Waste Management in Lagos State. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Desmond. Can you please put that in under your table?
Good afternoon, Right Honorable Speaker. Good afternoon, colleagues. My motion is on the need to enhance waste management in Lagos State. This House notes the efforts of the state government at ensuring the restoration of the cleaner environment and improving waste management through its policy, Cleaner Lagos Initiative. Further notes the recent significant improvement in waste management through the engagement of over 20,000 sanitation corps marshals, highway sweepers, marine schemes, and PSP operators by Lagos State Waste Management Authority, LOMA, is aware of the pathetic state of waste management as evident in the indiscriminate dumping of refuse in canals and major highways before the advent of Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu administration, and the consequent remarkable improvement recorded in the environmental sector. Is disturbed by the viral videos and protests by some sweepers over non-payment of their salaries due to delay necessitated by the audit exercise being carried out by LOMA, coupled with the effects of COVID-19 pandemic lockdown in the state. This House takes into cognizance the efforts of the Lagos State government through LOMA franchise initiative, which has created direct and indirect employment opportunities for residents of the state as dividends of democracy, and is mindful of the modern technological means that could be deployed by the state to achieve Cleaner Lagos initiative without recourse to engagement of street sweepers, but the need to provide employment opportunities for teeming residents of the state, informed the engagement of LOMA contractors by Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu-led administration. This House resolves to, 1, commend the efforts of the Lagos State government on this laudable initiative and assures of the House support for same. 2, call on Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu, Governor of Lagos State, to direct as follows. A, the Commissioner, Ministry of Finance, Accountant General, State Treasury Office, the Commissioner, Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources, the Acting Managing Director, Lagos State Waste Management Authority, and other relevant agencies to expedite action on the payment of all outstanding allowances. B, the Commissioner, Ministry of Information and Strategy, in conjunction with relevant agencies, to sensitize members of the public on the need to dispose their refuse properly and the importance of having waste bin in their respective houses. And 3, mandate the Committee on the Environment to investigate the immediate and remote causes of the operations of LOMA with a view to finding a lasting solution to this matter. I so move.
Honorable Kasumu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I raise the second motion.
All in favor say ayes. Those against nay. The ayes have it. Yes.
Thank you once again, Right Honorable Speaker. Dear colleagues, as stated in the motion, LOMA employs well over 20,000 workers. These are not direct staff of LOMA, but because LOMA has different schemes, which makes sure that the initiative, Cleaner Lagos initiative of His Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, is carried out. They've divided it into different schemes, such as the marine waste. Marine waste, in order to throw a bit of light, are those people you find in canals, drainages, and some waters in Lagos State who take out rubbles, take out plastics that are used for recycling and all whatnot. We have the policing and enforcement scheme. Those are saddled with the responsibility of guarding the highways, the median, and into making sure that residents don't throw waste products there, and the enforcement as well. We have the PSP highways. So besides the domestic cutting away of waste and also the commercial ones, LOMA also contracts PSPs to also take out those waste on medians as we see them. We have the one which is the motion at hand right now, the street sweepers. Those street sweepers are contracted by contractors that are being contracted by LOMA. Those contractors are known as CEOs. Now, over the last few weeks, we've been seeing a lot of videos on social media where people call out the state government. We state here that it's highly condemnable, reason being that LOMA as an agency does not deal directly with sweepers. They deal with contractors. Now, those contractors are paid so that they can use the resources they get after paying the sweepers to take care of the tools, the clothing they wear, and other things, and also to stand as a gap between government and the sweepers. I must say, Mr. Speaker, that prior to COVID-19, we had everything going smoothly. We expected that when the shocker of COVID-19 came and there was a lockdown, Lagos State suffered a lot from the IGR, from no IGR coming in. It was, the onus was on the contractors to be able to have palliative measures to sort the situation out and to have some form of control over their sweepers, but this wasn't done. So I want to condemn that if there is any issue at all, we have different channels. Lagos State House of Assembly has always been a listening house, a house that prides itself above the standard of excellence. There is hardly any petition that is not handled or taken care of. So we want to appeal that you go through all the measures, all the channels, whenever you have grievances or displeasure or challenges in all of these things. Mr. Speaker, in the 2020 budget, we made sure that we had adequate provision couched in the budget to handle the sweepers, the policing, the PSP highways, and even the street sweepers. That is why we're calling for an investigation to find out what the causes of these delays are. Thank you very much, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleagues, good afternoon. Mr. Speaker, I need to commend the prime mover of this motion because we are in July, and we know that whenever it rains, Lagos is below sea level, and apparently there's going to be flooding. So we need to appreciate the governor for this floodable initiative. Actually, he improved on what Ambode did, and this has brought to about 20,000 people employed in Lagos State. And that's a great one because it cuts across all local government and constituencies. However, sir, I will want to the prime mover to add that the issue of policing our canals and primary drainages require more attention. Because about a week ago in Shomolu, a lot of people are built into the canal that even after excavating all those debris, there will be nobody to cut it away. And at the end of the day, those debris will find their way into the canal. That means all the money spent by the state is more or less a waste. So I will want that to happen. Mr. Speaker, the third resolution of the prime mover is his statutory responsibilities. He should not be asking the House again to give him mandate to do that. Why are you having oversight on the ministry if you cannot investigate whatever must have transpired? But Mr. Speaker, this is a good motion that I want all other colleagues of mine to express support. Thank you.
Honorable Kennedy Joseph.
Thank you, the Right Honorable Speaker. I just want to add a little more to what the prime mover of that motion has just moved now. With what he said, almost every one of us have seen the viral video of some of those sweepers, what they are saying about the Lagos State government. Then, during the investigation that the prime mover have just moved, that they should try and investigate the causes of that behavior. I want to add that during that investigation, they should not stop the payment of whatever money, salary they are giving to them, because this is part of what is causing those crises we are seeing in that site. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Jude.
Thank you, and good afternoon, my Right Honorable Speaker and my colleagues. I also want to add my voice and also appreciate the prime mover of this motion. I am a keen observer of what the street sweepers have been doing. Sincerely, I appreciate, let me commend the Lagos State government for what they have done so far. The way, if you look at our street now, it's a bit better than when we have the former regime. It's a bit neater. Even though, for me, I still believe more is to be done because there are lots of other streets that have not been taken care of. However, on social media, I have followed with keen interest what was happening with the Loma people. And I don't want to call names. However, some people are just making things difficult for others in the name of some CEOs. I wonder why government will pay you X naira to pay your street sweepers, and you are paying X naira less something. I call it man inhumanity to man, and bringing a bad name to the government, which must be condemned with all ramifications. However, I still want to appreciate this model. The street sweepers, as of today, they have been highly empowered by the money they are getting. I know the bills is a little bit high in terms of government posts, considering the economic realities we are facing right now and the pandemic we are also facing. I want to also urge the government to try as much as possible to pay the outstanding to these, our mothers, like our parents, what I have seen. Most of them appreciate what the government is doing. Sir, in social media, you find people they were carrying the uniform of lawman and they were burning them. Somebody is behind that. My dear brother, you don't need, like Honorable Luo has said, you need to investigate what happened. You need to. There are a lot of things that are wrong. And I will also advise, you don't spare anybody when you discover those that are trying to create bad name
for this government. Thank you. God bless you.
Honorable Laiwala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon, my colleagues. I stand to lend my voice to this important motion that Honorable Desmond just brought to our notice this afternoon. It's very, very worrisome for workers to work and they are not paid. It's a well-notion that labor wages should not be delayed, even just for a minute. They have worked, and I strongly believe that they need to be paid as and when due. It's very worrisome, Mr. Speaker, sir, that this issue that we are talking about is well captured in year 2020 budget. As a member of the committee, I'm aware that enough provisions were made for this salary. So we are surprised that this kind of thing is happening. Auditing of workers' salary, auditing of the numbers of workers that are working shouldn't have been a hindrance. I believe things have to be done properly. That's why I support the motion that the relevant ministries, all the ministries mentioned here, should be invited. The commissioner should be invited, especially the Attorney General, to come to the committee and let us know the reason why they are giving this delay in salary. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Ajani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, my colleagues. I would like to commend the prime mover of this motion. While we understand that the pandemic has restricted a lot of efforts by the state government to deal with the issues of flooding and cleaning our streets, I would also like to state that the biggest, perhaps the largest issue that we're having in our state at the moment is the level of plastic waste that's floating around and blocking our gutters. So even as they're sweeping and cleaning our streets, we have issues in which local government roads are being cleaned and taken care of by the local government, and they are doing it in such a way that the roads are still being flooded. I believe we also need to investigate why these issues are happening and what the committee can do as well in terms of curbing these issues with the state government. The plastic waste that we have floating around can currently be monetized. We know, for instance, that it can be used to create petrol, it can be used in road construction, and even the construction of new homes. So perhaps we should call on our governor to look at creating a value supply chain that doesn't require any investments from people of the states, much like we have with LOMA, in which they just start a company and immediately they're working, immediately they're earning money, immediately there's people being empowered in the states. Perhaps we should look at something like that for the plastic waste we have in a way to monetize it so the states will earn money, will also create jobs, thus killing two birds with one stone. Thank you very much, sir.
Honorable Ishao.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, honorable colleagues. I also want to commend the prime mover of this motion, very timely, and it was necessary that we react to what has happened in the community. I want to commend the governor of Lagos State for having revived the system of cleaning in Lagos, and we can see the impact. I also want to commend this House because it was during the budget process that this House increased the salaries, funding for that particular exercise so that it can continue to happen. We cannot ignore the viral video that a lot of us, if not all of us, saw. And in my opinion, it's blackmail orchestrated to Armstrong government. Like one of my colleagues mentioned, two of them actually, the process of audit was embarked upon. Some people, like they said, were not paying appropriate amounts. Also, some people were using less number of staff vis-a-vis a route. Maybe a route is supposed to have 10, 20 people, for instance. They engage 5 persons to clean the roads. Of course, they can't do, 5 people cannot do the job of 20 persons. So some parts of the roads were still dirty. So if government wanted to find out what was happening, and there's nothing wrong with that. But also we would want to I want to support the first leg of this resolve, or second leg, second leg of this resolve, that the money should be paid, because these persons, they are like our frontliners. Throughout the pandemic, they were out there, they were working. If anybody did anything wrong, it is the contractor that engaged them that did something wrong. So they should be paid. I want to make that appeal, so I love that second leg of the resolve. And also, the third leg of the resolve, that this should be investigated. I think I would like to support that wholeheartedly as well, so that we can unravel what really went down in that sector. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Adewale.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Distinguished colleagues, good afternoon. I would like to thank the prime mover of this motion, for this is one of the motions I've been waiting to hear on the floor of the House. As you all know, we all saw the video that went viral online regarding the LSHA official that felt the need to go to the media to hear his grievances. And after investigations done, they realized that it wasn't even LSHA that was owing them. Mr. Speaker, this House, you would understand that how the LSHA works is very simple. The LSHA employs CEOs, gives them contracts, they give them the staff. They have different categories of engagement, where you have those that are engaged with 16, 18, or 30 staff. But what LSHA did was they found out that there was not enough staffs on the roads that were supposed to be working at the time. Pending, considering the fact that we had the COVID lockdown and there was increase in waste materials from houses. So they decided to do the audit. During the audit, they found out that some CEOs did not have up to the numbers of staff that they were given and they were supposed to be paid for. And because they weren't doing that, during the process, they had to do investigations, and after investigations, they sanctioned them. Now, this particular CEO now took it upon himself or herself and went to the media to blackmail the government, saying the government has not paid salary. Where you were found wanting to have been cheating the government laid a ban on payment for you, pending the time that they find out all investigations and they weren't paid. Instead of them to come to their prestigious House of Assembly or to go to relevant authorities to make complaints, they went to the media. Mr. Speaker, it is a very bad idea. Mr. Speaker, we all know health is wealth, and there is the need for us to constantly clean our surroundings. Most of these waste products that we find, that found their ways into the gutter or the drainage systems and the canals are dumped by people like us. Mr. Speaker, there is the need for us to also continue to emphasize that our religious bodies, the CDCs, the CDAs, should also continue to enlighten people on the need not to dump their waste products into the drainages when it rains. Mr. Speaker, at the same time, I would like to say the House has mechanisms that can solve issues regarding government decisions, and this House has done that from the last assembly, where they stopped the former administration with the process they had with the waste clearing and management. And this present government, we have to say, they have done very well, and they are doing very well. Mr. Speaker, I would like to also support the prime mover by lending my voice to this and say I support the motion.
Honorable Saka.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker and my colleague. Well, I think audit exercise is statutory. And for changing of hand from one particular MD from one particular GM to another person is statutorily for him to audit the numbers of staff and even the assets that has been taken, because it's take the assets and liabilities of the management. For anybody to go out like what my brother have just said, the last speakers have just said, I think is irrelevant in this issue. In the sense that if you look at the way LSHA is working, they're working now effectively and efficiently, and which I believe we need to give kudos to them at the government of the Lagos State. And private, even if you look at the another arms of government that's supposed to support the state government, that is the local government, they have not done anything. The nonchalant attitude of the local government is another thing entirely, because the primary assignment of the local government is to look at the head at the local level. In fact, it's not only canals and this and that, including all the perishable items, the food, the cooked and uncooked items. They need to investigate, they need to verify it, that is this one hygienic or not. But the reverse is the case. And even if you look at most of the canal, all the environmental officers that are supposed to go out and look at the canals and drainages to report back to the local government and the state for primary and tertiary canals, they are not there. Even at the local government, the numbers of the environmental officers are so minimal, to the extent that by the time you go to some local government, the numbers of environmental officers that are there is not less than, even maximum is 10 or 15 now, or some is 3. With the number, the Lagos State is expand on daily basis. We are consuming a lot of food, and we need to protect ourselves. But the reverse is the case. And Mr. Speaker, sir, for me, I will also employ or to add more to the motion that the local government need to get dispensation in terms of employment to the environmental officers, and at the end of the day, so that they can complement what the state government is doing in terms of LOMA. And they have environmental institution in Yaba, and they're producing graduates on daily basis or yearly basis, including all the universities. Microbiologists is there. They can employ them so that they can look into all these problems that we are facing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lastly, Honorable Council.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a member of the Committee on Environment, I feel the need to also lend my voice to this motion. As rightly mentioned by my chairman, provision was adequately made, and I feel a few of my members have also mentioned that. Not to emphasize on most of what the other members have said, which I totally agree with. I find it rather appalling that most of the CEOs of these companies are underpaying their staff. We shouldn't be so. I agree, however, that we should look holistically into the affairs of LOMA, vis-a-vis the contractors, to correct some of the assertions made on behalf of the government. However, sir, furthermore, generally, I think the contractors should be able to do all that is necessary within the confines of the contract terms and agreement. Also, the areas of, say, recycling reusable products should be looked into with a view of converting waste to wealth and waste to energy and all of that processes. LOMA should also emphasize and emphatically continue to treat the payment of the salaries of the contractors as a recurrent expenditure, because it is actually a provision under the budget line. And further due diligence, however, lastly, Mr. Speaker, should be conducted on some of these future contractors before, however, embarking on giving them such contracts, to be able to ensure their capacity in taking care of environmental issues in Lagos State. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank you for your submissions. And I think some of us talked about the reactions of the sweepers on the road, and I think that will be our main focus in this motion, particularly the prime mover. For me, I think it's an area that we just have to address properly. And failing to do this, we encourage other that works with the state to continue to embarrass the state governments and, abuse privilege and opportunities being given to them. Let me say, we have sweepers on the road in Lagos State today based on sympathetic and humanitarian gesture. The state can afford to introduce mechanized means of removing, waste from our streets and high roads. But we are doing this to empower our people. You know, it doesn't matter how little, whatever they are getting, but at least it makes something at the end of the day. So that people, and also to discourage crime, because an idle hand, as we say, is a workshop of the devil. So people should not abuse this privilege and opportunity. So they need to condemn the action of those who are behind the video. There are so many channels that can be explored to get attention and to correct whatever agitation that we have relating to the payment of the salaries or whatever they are collecting. We are not in support of delay payment, but we should understand the fact that around the time it happened, that was the beginning of the COVID, and it's affected, delay payment of salary affected almost every part of the system in Lagos State, including the house. I'm sure the salary and the some allowances were delayed for some time before, the government got over it. So we must not encourage this. This area, I think the government, even the House or Ministry of Environment should look into deeply, and those who are behind it should be brought to serve as a deterrent to others. It is not enough that because you have been hold some salary that you have to blackmail, and the uniform purchased with government money was being born in the open and government. So I think that area is very important for us to condemn as a deterrent to others. If there is an issue with the government, we have so many channels that can be explored so that the issue can be addressed. We have to address that and look at that. I don't know what step the government has taken over that, but since we are taking it up, we should look at that area also. So, and for those who played role in the delay of salary, we need to find out whatever that led to that, and also if we have to hold them responsible, then the committee should do that in carrying out the oversight function. The last prayer, which some of us have spoken about, it depends on the extent of what you intend doing when it comes to getting the permission of the House. If it is getting to the books of that agency where you actually need the permission of the House. But if it is ordinary oversight function, you have the rights already. So on this note, I want you to do your final prayers and accommodate all that has been said by our colleagues.
Thank you, the Right Honorable Speaker. This House resolves to commend the efforts of the Lagos State government on this laudable initiative and assures of the House support for the same. The House also emphatically condemns the actions of those behind the video on social media space and asks that the Governor, Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu, instruct the Ministry of Environment to look into the matter and see those behind it and ensure that they are brought to book. This House also emphasizes that the policing and enforcement, PSP highways, should be given adequate attention. This House also
with what you have on the paper already.
Okay, all right. The House also calls on the Governor to instruct the Commissioner, the Ministry of Information and Strategy, in conjunction with relevant agencies, to sensitize the public of members of the public on the need to dispose their refuse properly and the importance of having waste bins in their respective houses. This House also resolves to mandate the Committee on the Environment to investigate the immediate and remote causes of the operations of LOMA with a view to finding a lasting solution to the matter, and also as amended by Mr. Speaker.
I so move.
I so move.
Honorable Afini.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion as amended.
All in favor say ayes. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Majority Leader. On the laying of report, Honorable Shao.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to lay the report of the Committee on Economic Plan, the Joint Committee on Economic Planning and Budget, and Committee on Finance on the amendment of the year 2020 appropriation bill. I so lay.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, next is the presentation of report just laid. And to do this, to take the report of the committee in respect of Appropriation Amendment Bill 2020, I wish to move that the House dissolve to Committee of Supply. I so move.
Honorable Kasu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I raise the second motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against nay. The ayes have it. Honorable Shao. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon once again, colleagues. Report of a Joint Committee of Economic Planning and Budget and Finance on the Appropriation Law, year 2020 Amendment Bill. Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, you will recall that the House received a letter dated 21st May 2020 from Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu, the governor of the state, seeking the approval of the House for reordering of priorities under the year 2020 appropriation due to unforeseen pandemic COVID-19, which has brought both developed and developing nations under a complete lockdown and also crippled the economic activities on a global scale. More so, Mr. Governor added in his letter that the pandemic, with its resultant health and economic impact, has greatly affected the context of operation and execution of the developmental agenda of his administration. Subsequently, the second reading of the bill took place at the plenary session of Monday, 29th June 2020, and the same committed to the Joint Committee on Economic Planning and Budget and Finance for further legislative deliberations. Objectives of the reordering. The objectives of the reordering are to address the current demands and necessities such as 1. Response to the effect of COVID-19 pandemic on the state economy, and 2. Need to adjust the budget size to be in sync with the economic realities resulting from the pandemic. Brief on first quarter year 2020 budget. The budget performance in the state, according to Mr. Governor's letter, was 56% as at 31st March 2020, with the breakdown as follows. Total ordinary revenue, 106%. Total recurrent expenditure, 80%. Total capital expenditure, 41%. Findings. In the course of its consideration, the committee observed the following. That the total revenue was reduced by 24% from 1,071.6 8.029 billion, which is the year 2020 approved budget, to 812.465 billion, with the Lagos Internal Revenue Service revenue projection dropping to 350 billion naira. The federal transfers was reduced by 30% to 129.492 billion based on the falling price of crude oil and projected low VAT collection due to the depressed economy. That the debt charge is internal, which is the provision for the payment of interest on the state's local bank loans, is surprisingly proposed to be increased by 9% from 29.7 billion to 32.447 billion. This is unclear because we are of the notion that all bank debt servicing has been rescheduled to provide relief to states and remove the burden of paying bank loans during the pandemic. The amount should be way below this, and the money can be put to use elsewhere. That reducing the total overhead cost by 20%, which translates to 49.795 billion reduction from 200.135 billion, is worrisome. This is because subvention, which happens to be personnel cost in a number of cases, such as in tertiary institutions and LOMA, accounted for 12 billion of these costs. This implies that salaries will not be paid. This has to be restored. Capital expenditure was proposed to be revised down by 24%, which is expected due to paucity of funds, while loans and bonds repayment was reduced significantly by 76.149 billion, even though the committee is of a strong belief that a further reduction of 30 billion naira is feasible due to overestimation of our consolidated debt servicing account CDSA requirement by Debt Management Office DMO. Also, the internal loan principal repayment was underestimated because the amount paid as at March 2020 was 6 billion more than the proposed revised amount. Additional provision have to be made for this head. The total budget size shrunk by 248.093 billion, being 21% to 920.469 billion from 1.168 trillion. A deficit funding of 108.005 billion is required to fund the budget. This is an increase of 11%, which is 10.472 billion. Part of the increase is set to provide for the 8 billion CBN agric loan for the rice mill, while the remaining gap was created because the bond received was 97.7 billion, not 100 billion, leaving a shortfall of 2.3 billion naira. That new provisions for dedicated accounts for some agencies of government was made. Also, there are a few instances where revenue projections were cut. However, available data shows that the revenue projections were on course in some cases. Some cuts were too much, while some had surpassed their projections, hence there was no need to cut back in the first instance. Some new capital projects were introduced into the budget, mostly to be funded by the 100 billion naira balance from bond issuance, which includes the regional road and the technical studies of Fourth Mainland Bridge, while some projects were dropped from the bond list. In the midst of this budget cutback, some MDAs managed to get increased allocations to their operations. They include Ministry of Finance to cater for group life and property insurance, Ministry of Agri, rice mill funding to improve food security, Employment Trust Fund for increased funding to micro, small, and medium enterprises to revamp the economy, Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, to provide training, adverts, monitoring, and recertification of businesses to ensure responsible reopening and operation during the pandemic, Ministry of Transport, Public Transport Infrastructure, to secure Lagos State buses that are currently held in bonded warehouse and port in order to improve provision of vehicles to aid social distancing on our roads. Finally, Office of Drainage Service and Water Resources to provide additional drainage works to cope with the predicted rainfall this year. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, below are the line-by-line details of the committee findings. Mr. Speaker, if you permit me, we have 120 comments, findings here, and we also have 120 recommendations. Our recommendations are findings jive with one another, number by number. I would crave your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, if I can leave this for readings of members. There is a table at the beginning of the recommendation portion, which gives a summary of what has happened, the numbers that have moved in summary, up to the final size of the budget. If you permit me, Mr. Speaker, I would like to go to page 15, item 118, and conclude from there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Page 15, item 118. The State Treasury Office should always inform the Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget about the actual revenues and expenditures of MDAs for record and reconciliation purposes. 119. The State Treasury Office, STO, should adhere strictly with the provisions of Section 3, subsection 3 of the Appropriation Law year 2019 as passed by the House, which frowns at expending funds collected in a subsequent year on previous year's budget items. 120. The Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget should create subvention personnel and subvention overheads in the yearly state budget. The revised budget is now 920 billion 468 million 589,337 naira, with a recurrent expenditure of 413 billion 406 million 930,613 naira, being 45%, and the capital expenditure of 507 billion 61 million 658,707 naira, being 55% for the year ending 31st December 2020. Conclusion. The committee expresses its gratitude to Mr. Speaker and the entire House for the opportunity given to carry out this onerous task. Also, our appreciation goes to Mr. Clark and the entire Secretariat for their support. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Honorable Tomo. Please second him. Honorable Kasumu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved.
All in favor say ayes. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Honorable Tobo.
That the government in its wisdom announced that all those loan beneficiaries of Lagos State government were given moratorium period, at least during this lockdown period, that they should not pay interest on their loans, and they should not pay the money on the fund granted them. So I feel now bringing additional 9% to the burden of the state government, I feel the Lagos State government needs to work on this with the commercial, especially the internal loans that we get from the commercial banks. Then secondly, sir, I want to, in my own opinion, where there were lockdown, there is economic meltdown, there's a problem. Why introducing new projects? Why the ongoing projects that were being included in the budget were stepped down? I feel the budget, the projects that were included in the bond for the last 100 billion, the final part of the 100 billion bonds that were dropped and introduced new ones. I feel they should consider those projects were supposed to serve and carry them along rather than dropping the old projects that were supposed to be completed for the benefit of the larger society and introducing new ones. I feel we should allow it to reflect that the new ones should stay, while the old ones that are ongoing should be completed so that the people can enjoy dividends of democracy. Mr. Speaker, let me stop here first.
Mr. Chairman, can you explain that area?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry.
The last point he raised.
I can take the two of them, sir, if you permit.
That's the last one.
Okay. What happened with the last one is the bond request that the state government made via the federal government, which is via SEC. By the time they approached the bond market, there were some projects that were presented by the state that was not acceptable to the SEC, to the authorities. So they had to drop those projects and put projects acceptable to them on it. So it wasn't because they just wanted to flip all those projects. They needed to do that so as to be able
to access
access the bond via SEC. So it's not intentional to drop those projects. And the projects cut across several sectors. We have in agri, we have in last mile transport, transport, and so on and so forth.
I'm sure. I hope that is clear. Another person, there is no another question. Can somebody move a motion for adoption? So we have somebody who asked. Yeah, Honorable Kasum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a motion for adoption, sir. The chairman having explained the points raised by Honorable Togun, I therefore move that the recommendation as read out by the committee chairman be adopted as a resolution of the House.
Honorable Okolao.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to second the motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against nay. The ayes have it. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, upon completion of the purpose for which we dissolved to Committee of Supply, I wish to move that the House reverts to plenary.
Honorable Tija.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against nay. The ayes have it. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, at the Committee of Supply.
Sorry, Majority Leader. Before we get to that, the sectoral approval should be part of the Committee of the Supply, so that you can give the whole details account at what is it called? So we have to revise I have to revise the process. Majority Leader, you have to take us back to where we are coming from. Sorry.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, upon the hint provided by the Speaker, I wish to move that the House dissolve again to Committee of Supply. That's all.
Honorable Togo.
I rise to second the motion.
All in
as moved.
favor, say aye. Those against, nay. The ayes have it. Approval in year 2020 revised budget sectoral allocation, governance. The sum of 2,113,865,470 naira for personnel costs. 9,099,280,615 naira for overhead costs, and 858,828,559 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against, nay. The ayes have it. House of Assembly. The sums of 586,700,780 naira for personnel costs. 9,265,607,719 naira for overhead costs, and 12,634,389,840 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against, nay. The ayes have it. Economic planning and budget. There are sums of 428,200,744 naira for personnel costs, 7,344,834,535 naira for overhead costs, 27,716,472,420 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against, nay. The ayes have it. Establishment and training. There are sums of 61,103,246,548 naira for personnel costs, 3,598,774,337 naira for overhead costs, and 477,755,775 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against, nay. The ayes have it. Finance. There are sums of 553,101,699 naira for personnel costs, 52,150,182,635 naira for overhead costs, and 3,761,168,982 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against, nay. The ayes have it. Information and strategy. There are sums of 392,411,927 naira for personnel costs, 689,466,502 naira for overhead costs, 681,249,888 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against, nay. The ayes have it. Local government. There are sums of 449,822,149 naira for personnel costs, 802,833,648 naira for overhead costs, and 3,031,038,847 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against, nay. The ayes have it. Science and technology. There are sums of 323,715,282 naira for personnel costs, 552,700,000 16,060 naira for overhead costs. 6,065,500,118 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Justice. That sums of 978,800,506 naira for personnel costs, 564,145,760 naira for overhead costs, and 2,394,218,380 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Judiciary. There are sums of 2,295,923,257 naira for personnel costs, 2,979,466,000 naira for overhead costs, and 4,352,168,238 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Special duties. The sums of 3,902,849,699 naira for personnel costs, 10,927,713,477 naira for overhead costs, and 6,022,797,935 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Agriculture. There are sums of 922,053,604 naira for personnel costs, 85,081,641 naira for overhead costs, 12,844,228,141 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Commerce, industry, and cooperatives. There are sums of 1,371,996,182 naira for personnel costs, 6,237,975,861 naira for overhead costs, 22,99,969,963 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Transportation. There are sums of 5,277,668,510 naira for personnel costs, 460,256,070 naira for overhead costs, 36,499,409,008 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Works and infrastructure. There are sums of 935,831,570 naira for personnel costs, 384,512,641 naira for overhead costs, 122,210,432,353 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Environment. There are sums of 2,281,168,281 naira for personnel costs, 1,843,439,612 naira for overhead costs, 35,046,646,839 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Housing. There are sums of 280,490,000 naira for personnel, 72,609,735 naira for overhead costs, and 5,660,797,304 naira for capital. Stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Lands. The sum of 648,960,126 naira for personnel. 5,373,129 naira for overhead costs, and 3,741,471,960 naira for capital. Stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Physical planning and urban development. The sum of 1,418,350,902 naira for personnel costs. 66,080,850 naira for overhead costs. 8,432,384,736 naira for capital. Stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. All right. The sums of 37,338,524,275 naira for personnel costs. 17,210,560,333 naira for overhead costs, and 25,508,939,615 naira for capital. Stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Home affairs. The sums of 192,366,660 naira for personnel costs. 1,034,793,165 naira for overhead costs, and 1,136,926,145 naira for capital. Stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Sports development. The sums of 192,425,575 naira for personnel costs. 3,012,454,832 naira for overhead costs, and 63 million naira for capital. Stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Education. The sums of 41,392,886,998 naira for personnel costs. 5,506,850,339 naira for overhead costs, and 30,616,097,432 naira for capital. Stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Social protection. The sums of 835,075,680 naira for personnel costs. 2,469,936,174 naira for overhead costs, and 1,982,239,887 naira for capital. Stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Statewide. The sums of 121,005,783,910 naira for capital stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Grand total. The grand total of 166,144,436,4 441 naira for personnel costs. 136,664,873,617 naira for overhead costs. 29,955,223,867 naira for dedicated expenditure. 80,642,396,705 naira for subvention, and 507,061,658,707 naira for capital expenditure stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say ayes. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Budget side, the sum of 920,468,589,337 naira being total budget side stand as part of the schedule. Those in favor say ayes. Those in favor say ayes. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Thank you. Majority.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I wish to move that the House reverts to plenary. I so move.
Honorable Desmond.
I rise to second the motion as moved.
All in favor say ayes. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Majority.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, at the Committee of Supply, we took the presentation of reports on Appropriation Amendment Bill 2020 by the Chairman, House Committee on Economic Planning and Budgets. After the report, members fielded few questions from the chairman, and the questions were answered. The recommendations of the committee were adopted as the resolution of the House, and the sectorial consideration of the schedule attached to the bill was also taken and approved at the Committee of Supply. Mr. Speaker, that is what transpired at the committee.
Honorable Setonji.
Thank you, the Right Honorable Speaker. I rise to affirm that that was exactly what transpired at the Committee of the House, at the Committee of Supply. Thank you.
Honorable Tobo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the affirmation.
All in favor say ayes. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Yes, sir.
Motion to include the third reading, sir.
Yes.
Before the chairman, Mr. Speaker, I wish to crave indulgence that we need to alter the other paper to include the third reading of this bill. And with your kind permission, Mr. Speaker, I wish to move to accommodate the third reading of this bill. We have two items, laying and presentation.
Well, we have the this thing already, the presentation of the report. We have done the second reading, and this flows into the third reading, so we don't have to adjust the what is it called, the other people to accommodate this. So it's taken from the Committee of Supply that the procedure leads down to the third reading.
As your leadership places.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That a bill for a law to amend the appropriation law 2020 and to authorize the reordering of 413 billion 406 million 930,630 naira from the Consolidated Revenue Fund for recurrent expenditure and 507 billion 61 million 658,707 naira from the Development Fund for capital expenditure, thereby making the revised year 2020 budget to be 920 billion 468 million 589,337 naira for the year ending 31st December 2020 be read a third time. I so move.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That a bill for a law to amend the Appropriation Law 2020 and to authorize the reordering of 413 billion 406 million 930,630 naira from the Consolidated Revenue Fund for recurrent expenditure, 507 billion 61,658 million 707 naira from Development Fund for capital expenditure, thereby making the revised year 2020 budget to be 920 billion 468 million 589,337 naira for year ending 31st December 2020. Those in favor say ayes. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Mr. Clerk, kindly send the clean copy of the money bill to Mr. Governor for his access. Thank you all. Majority Leader.
Distinguished colleagues, we have come to the end of today's proceeding, and with the permission of Mr. Speaker, I wish to move that this House adjourns till Thursday, the 9th day of July at 10 a.m. I so move.
Honorable Tijani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the motion as moved.
All in favor say ayes. Those against nay, the ayes have it. This House stands adjourned till Thursday, 9 July 2020 at 10 a.m. prompt. I rise.